research that is in peer-reviewed journals. There's a lot of work on wind and renewables that ends up in the grey literature, and to date we've published almost 40 papers in a number of journals. Our study sites, we're working within the wind corridor of the United States. We have done a broad range of research on socio-economic impacts and modeling in Iowa, Kansas, and Oklahoma, but the vast majority of our research is conducted in Texas. Texas is a very important state, obviously, for wind generation, over 12,500 megawatts, and we've been looking at a number of wind farms west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So what I'd like to do this afternoon is just introduce you briefly to some of the work we've done, and I'm going to frame this within three broad questions. The first two I'll just talk about very briefly. The third one I want to spend a little bit more time on. The first one deals with the social impacts of wind farms as it relates to public perception. A lot of people are for wind energy, but often projects fail in communities because some people are opposed to wind turbines. And so the question is framed, are the public supportive of wind power development? And we have done 4 years of survey work, sending out over 10,000 surveys up through the wind corridor of the United States. And I'll just give you some very sort of high-level summary results. Overall, the support for wind in this part of the world is very, very high. And you can see that generally about 70% of the people that we surveyed supported wind development either in their communities or within the United States in general. And when we look at some of the typical questions that people address when it comes to wind energy, such as that wind turbines create noise, that they're unattractive in the landscape, they're unreliable, they're a danger to wildlife, we can see that in green here, about 20% of the respondents agreed or strongly agreed with those statements. So still, relatively few people are anti-wind in this part of the world. The bottom line with wind energy in the central part of the United States is that people aren't supportive of wind energy for some sort of philosophical issue of dealing with renewables, but from an economic perspective. They see that wind turbines, large-scale wind farms, they bring jobs, they create local industries. There is a tremendous influx of money into these local communities, and so again, there's very strong support across the board for wind power development. The second broad question, and again I'm just going to touch on this before I spend more time on the environmental impacts, deals with the economics of wind. Specifically, how does investment in wind energy affect states and local communities? And we define local communities here as communities within 100 miles of these wind farms. We worked in West Texas looking at two large assets here. We're dealing with two wind farms that are almost 1,400 megawatts of installed capacity. And through economic modeling, in a paper that was published in Energy Policy, we showed that the lifetime economic activity that included job creation and induced economic impacts was almost $2 billion as a result of these two wind farms. And so the economic impacts are substantial to these communities.